Snow fell thick and quiet, the kind that swallowed sound and made the world feel smaller than it was. The wind cut through the wooden platform like a blade, sliding between the gaps in the boards and biting at anything warm or living. The frontier town stood half asleep under lantern light, its cabins hunched low as if trying to survive the night by sheer stubbornness. That was when the woman's voice rose, thin but fierce. Breaking the stillness like a cracked bell, she was wrapped in a threadbare shawl. Her body heavy with child, her breath fogging the air as she clutched her belly. Her boots were soaked, her hands blue with cold, yet her eyes burned with something stronger than fear. She stood before a lone cabin at the edge of the station and whispered words that carried more weight than the snow on the roof. "Can I give birth in your cabin?" The door did not open. The silence that followed felt cruel, almost deliberate, as if the land itself had turned away from her. Somewhere down the platform, a train whistle moaned like a wounded animal, reminding everyone that help came and went without caring who was left behind. The woman swayed, steadying herself against a post, her jaw clenched to keep from crying out. Each step she had taken to reach this place had been paid for in pain. From the far end of the platform, a tall shape moved through the falling snow. He walked slow and sure, boots meeting wood with a sound that carried authority. His frame was broad, shoulders carved by years of survival rather than comfort. Long dark hair lay against his bare chest, unmoved by the cold, as if the winter respected him enough to keep its distance. People in the town knew him by reputation long before they knew his face. They called him Stone Bear, and they spoke the name softly. Stone Bear stopped when he saw her. He took in the purple shawl, the swollen belly, the way her knees trembled. His dark eyes shifted briefly to the closed cabin door, then back to the woman. He said nothing at first, but the air changed when he stood there. Like the night itself had paused to listen. Behind them, another figure lingered in shadow. A man in a long coat and wide-brimmed hat watched from a distance, his face hidden, his presence sharp as a drawn knife. He had been following the woman since she staggered into town, drawn by something that had nothing to do with mercy. His boots made no sound as he moved closer, careful not to be seen. The woman noticed Stone Bear then. Her eyes widened, fear mixing with relief. She had heard stories on the road, warnings spoken in hushed tones around campfires. Some said the Apache giant was savage. Others said he was the last man you wanted between you and harm. She did not know which was true. Only that the cold was winning and time was slipping away. Another pain took her, stronger this time. She gasped and bent forward, gripping the post with both hands. Snow clung to her lashes as she lifted her face toward him. "Please," she said, her voice breaking. "I will not last the night." Stone Bear stepped closer. His shadow covered her like a shield, blocking the wind. He could smell blood and fear and new life all at once. He had seen many things in his years on the plains and in the mountains, but a woman alone like this, carrying a child into a frozen town that wanted no part of her, stirred something old and dangerous in him. He glanced again at the cabin. He knew who lived there. He also knew why the door stayed shut. "Come with me," he said at last. The words were simple, but they carried promise and risk in equal measure. He did not point to the cabin. Instead, he turned toward the edge of town, where the lights thinned and the snow grew deeper. Beyond the tracks lay the forest, and farther still, the hills where his own cabin stood, hidden from the world and known to very few. The woman hesitated. Every step hurt now. Her body told her the child was coming, whether she was ready or not. She looked back once, toward the station and the faint hope of warmth behind those walls. Then she looked at Stone Bear and saw something steadier than shelter. She nodded. He took her arm, his grip firm but careful, and guided her off the platform. Snow swallowed their tracks almost as soon as they made them. Behind them, the man in the long coat watched, his lips curling into a thin smile. Plans could change. Paths could cross again. As they moved through the trees, the town disappeared behind a curtain of white. The forest groaned under the weight of snow, branches bending low like tired men. The woman stumbled more than once, and each time Stone Bear caught her, before she fell. He said little, but his presence spoke louder than words. Still, his mind was not at ease. He knew this land. He knew the signs of coming trouble. Wolves had been restless. Riders had been seen where no riders should be. And now this woman, carrying more than just a child, had arrived at his doorstep. He could feel it in his bones. "Tell me your name," he said as they crossed a narrow creek. Ice cracking under their boots. She swallowed hard. "They call me Ashen Willow," she said. It was the name she had taken after leaving everything else behind. Stone Bear nodded once. Names mattered. They held stories, debts, and futures. Another cry tore from her, sharper than before. She doubled over, breath coming fast. Stone Bear lifted her without effort, carrying her the rest of the way as if she weighed nothing at all. Snow brushed his skin, melted, and steamed faintly against his warmth, far behind them. The man in the coat stepped onto the trail they had left. He crouched, touching the ground, reading the signs with practiced ease. His eyes gleamed with purpose. Whatever waited in that cabin in the hills was not meant to stay hidden forever. The lights of Stone Bear's cabin appeared at last. Faint and golden through the trees, safety for now glimmered ahead like a fragile promise. Ashen Willow clung to him, her face pale, her strength nearly gone. Inside her, life pressed forward. Unaware of the danger gathering in the dark, as Stone Bear reached the door and pushed it open. A sudden crack echoed through the forest. Not thunder, not ice. Something else entirely. He froze, listening, his instincts flaring. The night was not finished with them yet. Stone Bear stood still with the cabin door half open. The warm glow spilling onto the snow like a promise that might be taken back at any moment. The sharp sound echoed again in his mind. Not repeated, but remembered. Years on the frontier had taught him that danger did not always announce itself twice. Sometimes it only whispered once and waited to see if you were foolish enough to ignore it. He stepped inside and closed the door with care, setting Ashen Willow down on a thick blanket near the fire. The cabin smelled of pine smoke, dried herbs, and old leather. It was a place built by hands that trusted strength more than luck. The walls were lined with tools, pelts, and quiet reminders of battles survived. Outside, the wind pressed against the logs, as if trying to listen. Ashen Willow cried out again, her fingers digging into the blanket. Sweat beaded on her brow, despite the cold still clinging to her clothes. Stone Bear moved fast now, stoking the fire, setting water to heat, laying out what little he had prepared long ago for moments he hoped would never come. He had helped bring life into the world before, though never like this. Never with so many shadows closing in. "You are safe for now," he said, though he knew the words were fragile. His voice was steady, deep, carrying the weight of certainty, even when certainty was thin. Ashen Willow nodded, tears sliding down her temples into her hair. Safe was a word she barely trusted anymore. The road had taught her how quickly it could be taken away. She had left behind burned fields, broken promises, and a man whose rage had grown faster than his conscience. The child she carried was the last thing untouched by that fire. Between waves of pain, her thoughts drifted backward. She remembered the river crossing where her shoes had been lost. The night she slept in an abandoned church with wolves howling outside. The town where she begged for work and was turned away when her condition was noticed. Each memory was a stone tied to her feet, pulling her deeper into exhaustion. Stone Bear watched her closely. He noticed how she guarded her words, how her eyes flicked to the door even while writhing in pain. Fear had made a home in her long before tonight. He recognized that look. It was the same one he had worn after soldiers rode through his village years ago, leaving smoke and silence where laughter had been. He did not ask her questions yet. Some stories needed the right moment to breathe. Outside, the forest shifted. Snow slid from branches. An owl cried once, then fell quiet. The man in the long coat had reached the tree line overlooking the cabin. He crouched behind a fallen log, watching the light in the window flicker with movement. His name was Black Hollow, and he was not a man who lost what he hunted. He had followed Ashen Willow across 3 territories not for the child. but for what she carried without knowing its worth. Black Hollow's breath fogged the air as he smiled. The Apache giant was an obstacle, nothing more. Obstacles could be moved or broken. Inside, Ashen Willow grabbed Stone Bear's arm as another pain took her. Her grip was desperate, human, grounding him in the moment. "Do not let them take my child," she said. Her voice rawed at them. He repeated quietly. She shut her eyes, shaking her head. "I do not know who all of them are. I only know they will not stop." Stone Bear felt the weight of those words settle into his chest. He had spent years avoiding the world's hunger, living between maps, choosing solitude over bloodshed. But the world had a way of finding you anyway, especially when you tried to hide. He rose and checked the door again, sliding the heavy bar into place. His knife lay within reach, its handle worn smooth by use. He listened to the forest with more than his ears. He felt it, the way a storm feels before the first strike. Ashen Willow's breathing slowed slightly between pains. She stared at the low ceiling, tracing the lines of the logs with her eyes. This cabin felt older than fear, steadier than the road. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to imagine the child's face. Small and warm against her chest, Stone Bear sat beside her again. He told her to breathe with him, slow and deep. His calm anchored her, even as her body fought its own battle. He spoke of the hills beyond the cabin, of summers, when the grass grew tall, and winters when the snow sang underfoot. He did not speak of loss, but it lived in the pauses between his words. A faint crunch sounded outside, then another. Stone Bear stopped speaking. His eyes lifted, sharp and focused. He reached for his knife, not drawing it yet, just letting his hand rest where it belonged. Ashen Willow noticed the change, and fear surged back into her chest. "Someone is out there," she whispered. "Yes," he said. "But they do not own this night." Black Hollow circled the cabin, testing the silence, memorizing the shape of the place. He saw no other tracks, no horses, just the giant and the woman. He preferred things simple. Still, something about the quiet unsettled him. The forest felt like it was watching him back. He touched the scar along his jaw, a souvenir from a past hunt gone wrong. He had learned patience since then. Inside, Ashen Willow cried out again, louder this time. Stone Bear steadied her, murmuring words in his own tongue, words meant to call strength, not mercy. The fire crackled, sparks jumping like restless spirits. As the night deepened, the tension wrapped tighter around the cabin. Every sound carried meaning. Every shadow stretched longer than it should. Stone Bear knew that whatever Black Hollow wanted, he would not leave without trying to take it. Ashen Willow sensed it too. Her story, her flight, her fear, all of it had led her here, to this moment, to this man who stood between her and the dark. She did not know why fate had chosen an Apache giant and a hidden cabin, only that turning back was no longer possible. Outside, the wind shifted, carrying with it the promise of more than snow. Stone Bear lifted his gaze toward the small window, his reflection staring back at him, older and harder than he remembered. He tightened his grip on the knife. The child inside Ashen Willow moved, strong and insistent, as if aware that the world it was entering was already asking for a fight. The night pressed closer. Holding its breath, waiting for the first move, the night stretched on, heavy and slow, as if time itself had decided to watch instead of move. Stone Bear kept one ear on Ashen Willow's breathing and the other on the world beyond the walls. Every crack of wood soutling in the cold sounded like a footstep. Every gust of wind felt like a test. Ashen Willow drifted between sharp pain and fading awareness. In those brief, quiet moments, memories crept in. She saw herself younger, standing in a wide field under a summer sun, believing life would follow simple rules if she worked hard enough. She remembered the man who had once smiled at her, whose voice had turned hard when secrets came to light. She had not known then that survival would become her only skill. Stone Bear noticed her eyes cloud over and brought her back gently. "Stay with me," he said. His tone carried command, not force. He had learned long ago that strength did not always need to shout. She focused on his voice, anchoring herself to it. "You could have turned me away," she said weakly. He nodded once. Many did outside. Black Hollow paused near the back of the cabin. He listened, counting breaths, measuring the space between sounds. He had crossed deserts and rivers for this moment. He knew Ashen Willow was inside. He also knew she would not come quietly. She never had. Black Hollow's thoughts drifted to the men who had sent him. Men with clean hands and dirty intentions. They had spoken of bloodlines, of claims written in ink and enforced with steel. The child mattered because it connected worlds that were not meant to touch. Ashen Willow was a problem that had grown into a threat. He smiled again, thin and patient. Inside the cabin, Stone Bear rose and moved toward the window, peering out without exposing himself. Snow blurred the darkness, but his instincts screamed. He felt watched. Not by animals. By something colder. He turned back to Ashen Willow and spoke low. "Someone is waiting." I do not know how many fear tightened her face, but there was anger there too now. "I ran because I had to," she said. "Not because I was weak." "I know," Stone Bear replied. She swallowed hard. They believe the child belongs to them. They say blood decides everything. Stone Bear's jaw tightened. "Blood decides many things," he said. "But not all." The fire snapped, sending a spark up the chimney. Ashen Willow cried out again, louder, her body tightening. Stone Bear knelt beside her, grounding her through the pain. His hands were steady, practiced, respectful. He had buried too many children in his life to take this moment lightly. As the pain eased, her gaze locked onto his. "If they come inside," she said, "promise me something." He did not answer yet. "Promise me you will not let them take my child alive, Stone." Bear felt the weight of the request settle deep in his chest. He had sworn many vows in his life, most of them broken by forces beyond his control. Still, he met her eyes. "They will not take what stands under my roof," he said. The words were not a promise. They were a declaration. Outside, Black Hollow heard the raised voice, and knew time was tightening. He moved to the side of the cabin, pressing his ear against the logs. The sound of the fire, the woman's breathing, the deep rhythm of the giant's presence all reached him in fragments. He adjusted his grip on the rifle slung across his back, not raising it yet. He noticed something else then. Tracks that were not his. Fresh, light, circling wide. Someone else was near. Black Hollow's smile faded. He slid into deeper shadow, reassessing. From the ridge above the cabin, a second watcher observed the scene. Her name was Red Quill, and she had followed Stone Bear for 2 days, not as a hunter, but as a debt keeper. Years ago, he had spared her brother when no one else would. She had sworn to return that mercy if the day ever came. She saw Black Hollow moving and recognized the posture of a man who believed he owned the ending. Red Quill did not like such men. Inside the cabin, Ashen Willow's strength wavered again. Stone Bear spoke to her of dawn, of how the light would cut through the snow and make everything look new, even if it was not. He spoke to keep her anchored, but also to remind himself that the night would not last forever. Her hand found his wrist, fingers tightening. "You carry loss," she said suddenly. He paused. "Yes, it walks with you." "Yes," she nodded, as if confirming something she had already known. "Then help me make sure this child does not have to carry mine." Stone Bear closed his eyes for a brief moment. The world had a cruel way of passing pain forward. He had spent his life trying to stop that motion, even when it cost him. A sudden thud struck the side of the cabin. Snow slid from the roof. Ashen Willow gasped. Stone Bear was on his feet instantly, knife drawn now. Body positioned between her and the door. Another sound followed, lighter this time, moving away. A test, not an attack. Black Hollow retreated a few steps, recalculating. He had not expected another presence. The hills were rarely crowded, and Stone Bear was known for his solitude. Still, nothing changed the goal. Red Quill shifted her weight, eyes never leaving Black Hollow. She knocked an arrow, but did not release it. Not yet. The night was a web of choices, and one wrong move could tear it apart. Inside. Ashen Willow fought another wave of pain, her cries echoing off the cabin walls. Stone Bear felt the clock tightening. The child would come soon, whether the world allowed it or not. He moved quickly now, preparing what little more he could. His mind ran through possibilities, exits, angles. He was a man shaped by conflict, even when he sought peace. Ashen Willow's thoughts turned inward again. She thought of the child's first breath, of hands reaching for it with love or with claim. She thought of the cost of running and the cost of staying. Her fear sharpened into resolve. "If I do not make it," she said through clenched teeth, "you must run with the child. Do not look back." Stone Bear met her gaze, firelight dancing across his face. "We will speak of that after you rest," he said, though they both knew rest was a distant thing. Outside, the wind rose, carrying with it the sound of distant movement. Hooves, perhaps, or the echo of memory playing tricks. The land itself seemed unsure. Black Hollow glanced toward the ridge, sensing eyes on him. He did not see Red Quill, but he felt her. The way prey feels a hunter without knowing why. The night tightened its grip around the cabin, drawing all paths. Inside, life pressed forward. Outside, forces closed in. No one moved to end it yet. The balance held fragile as ice. Waiting for the first crack, the storm thickened, as if the mountains themselves were leaning in to watch. Snow fell harder now, turning the forest into a shifting white maze. Stone Bear felt the pressure of the night closing, every instinct alive and burning. He moved quietly, keeping the fire low, knowing light could be both comfort and invitation. Ashen Willow's strength was stretched thin. Each breath took effort. Each moment demanded will. Still, there was a calm settling beneath the pain, a deep resolve that surprised even her. She was no longer only running. She was standing in the center of something that mattered. Stone Bear knelt beside her again, his presence steady. He checked the door once more, then the window. The silence outside had changed. It was no longer empty. It was waiting. Black Hollow crouched near the trees, snow gathering on his shoulders like a shroud. He had confirmed it now. Another watcher was close. Someone skilled, someone patient. That complicated things, but it did not end them. He had faced worse odds and still walked away with what he came for. He shifted his position, moving downwind, careful not to rush. Fear made mistakes. Control won outcomes. On the ridge, Red Quill followed his movement with sharp eyes. She knew men like Black Hollow. They believed the world owed them endings that suited their plans. She had buried too many such men in memory alone. Her fingers tightened around the bowstring, but she held her fire. Stone Bear had not called for help yet. Inside the cabin, Ashen Willow cried out again, the sound tearing from her chest. Stone Bear caught her shoulders, grounding her through the surge. "You are strong," he said. "Stronger than this night." She laughed weakly through the pain. "I had no choice." "Choice always finds us," he replied. Sometimes late, her hand found his again, gripping tight. "If we survive this," she said, "I want the child to know peace. Not the kind that hides. The kind that stands." Stone Bear nodded slowly. Peace earned is the only kind that lasts. A sudden knock struck the door, heavy and deliberate. Not a test this time. Acclaimed Stone Bear rose, knife in hand, his body blocking Ashen Willow completely. He did not answer. The knock came again, followed by a voice smooth and cold. "Open the door, giant. We only want the woman." Ashen Willow's breath caught. Black Hollow Stone Bear's voice carried through the wood, calm and unshaken. "You want something that is not yours." Black Hollow chuckled softly. "Everything belongs to someone, sooner or later." Red Quill shifted above them, heart pounding. The moment was close now. She watched the door, the shadows, the way Black Hollow leaned slightly forward. He was ready to force it. Inside, Ashen Willow shook her head, tears sliding into her hair. "Do not listen to him." Stone Bear did not turn. "I am listening to the land," he said. "It tells me who belongs here. The door rattled as Black Hollow struck it with his shoulder, testing the strength. The logs held, groaning but firm. Stone Bear adjusted his stance. Every muscle coiled. Ashen Willow screamed as another powerful wave hit her. The sound cut through the cabin and into the night, raw and unstoppable. For a moment, even Black Hollow paused, the reality of new life pressing against his intent. Then his face hardened, red. Quill saw the hesitation and knew it would not last. She raised her bow, breath steady, waiting for the line between threat and action to be crossed. Stone Bear moved quickly now, guiding Ashen Willow through the pain, his voice a steady drum. Stay with me. Do not drift. The dawn is closer than you think. She focused on him, on the firelight, on the idea of morning. Somewhere beyond the snow and fear, a future waited. She clung to it. Outside, Black Hollow stepped back, circling again, searching for weakness. He spotted the window and smiled. Glass was easier than wood. Red Quill saw it too. Her arrow flew before thought could catch up, slicing through the snow and striking the ground inches from Black Hollow's boot. A warning, clear and sharp. Black Hollow froze, then laughed quietly. So the hills have teeth tonight. He raised his hand slightly, backing away from the window. Red Quill held her aim, eyes locked on him. She had revealed herself now. There was no turning back. Inside, Stone Bear heard the arrow strike and knew help had arrived, though he did not know from where. The balance shifted, just slightly. Ashen Willow's cries grew more urgent, her body moving toward a moment that could not be stopped. Stone Bear prepared himself, pushing aside the noise outside, focusing on the life struggling to enter the world. The door creaked as Black Hollow leaned close again, his voice lower now. This does not end well for you, Giant, Stone Bear answered, without hesitation. Many nights did not. I am still here. Snow fell heavier, muffling sound, wrapping the cabin in a cocoon of white. Time stretched, every second thick with meaning. Red Quill held her position, ready to strike if Black Hollow moved wrong. Ashen Willow screamed again, a sound filled with pain and power. Stone Bear felt the moment approaching, the thin line between loss and hope. He steadied his hands, his heart pounding. Outside, Black Hollow made his decision. He stepped back into the trees, not retreating, but repositioning. This was not over. It was only changing shape. Red Quill tracked him until the forest swallowed his form. She did not follow. Not yet. Her duty was here. The night held its breath as the cabin glowed faintly against the storm. Inside, life pressed forward with fierce insistence. Outside, danger circled, patient and hungry. Somewhere beyond the clouds, dawn waited, unaware of how much depended on its arrival. The first pale hint of dawn crept into the sky like a promise kept at the last. The possible moment. Snow still fell, but lighter now, softer, as if the storm itself had grown tired. Inside the cabin, the air was thick with heat, breath, and life pushing its way forward. Ashen Willow cried out one final time, a sound that carried every mile she had walked and every fear she had carried. Stone Bear stayed with her, steady and unshaken, guiding her through the last fierce moment. Then the sound changed. A thin, sharp cry cut through the cabin, small but fierce, claiming space in the world for a heartbeat. Everything stopped. Then Stone Bear lifted the child gently, awe softening his powerful features. A daughter, strong-voiced and alive, her tiny fists clenched as if already ready to fight for her place. Ashen Willow sobbed with relief, laughter breaking through tears as the weight she had carried finally eased. You did it, Stone Bear said quietly. No, she whispered back. We did. He wrapped the child in a clean cloth and laid her against Ashen Willow's chest. The baby quieted almost instantly, her cries fading as she felt warmth and safety. Outside, the forest seemed to exhale. Red Quill watched from the ridge as the sky lightened. When she heard the newborn's cry, carried faintly on the wind, a small smile touched her lips. Her debt was paid, and more than that, something right had been set in motion. She lowered her bow and slipped back into the trees, unseen and satisfied. Black Hollow did not return. As dawn spread, his tracks led away from the cabin, disappearing into the deeper woods. He was a man who understood when a hunt had turned against him. The child had been born beyond his reach, protected not just by walls and weapons, but by choice and courage. Some lines, once crossed, could not be redrawn. Stone Bear barred the door no longer. He stepped outside briefly, scanning the quiet forest. Snow glimmered under the growing light, untouched and clean. The danger had passed, at least for now. He returned inside, closing the door gently behind him. Ashen Willow rested, exhaustion finally claiming her. The child slept against her, breathing soft and steady. Stone Bear tended the fire and cleaned the cabin, moving with calm purpose. This was not his life before, but it felt like something he had been walking toward without knowing it. When Ashen Willow woke again, the light through the window was brighter. Morning had fully arrived. She looked around, then down at the child in her arms. A smile spread slowly across her face, real and unguarded. "She needs a name," she said. Stone Bear considered the child, her dark hair, her steady breathing. "Names matter," he said. Ashen Willow nodded. "I want her name to mean strength without cruelty." Stone Bear thought of the hills, the storms, the way the land endured. He spoke a name from his language, one that carried the meaning of shelter and dawn together. Ashen Willow repeated it softly, tasting its weight. "It suits her," she said. Over the following days, the cabin changed. Smoke rose steady from the chimney. Tracks in the snow multiplied, not with threat, but with purpose. Ashen Willow regained her strength slowly, learning the rhythm of the land and the quiet safety of the hills. Stone Bear showed her where the water ran clean, where the sun warmed the ground even in winter. They spoke of the past in pieces, never forcing it. Ashen Willow told him of the men who had hunted her, of papers and promises that meant nothing when power spoke louder. Stone Bear told her of his people, of loss carved into memory, of survival chosen again and again. The world beyond the hills still existed, with its hunger and its laws. But here something different took root. One morning, as snow melted into clear streams, a rider approached the cabin. Stone Bear stood ready, but the rider stopped well short of the door, hands visible, posture respectful. He brought news. The men Black Hollow served had turned their eyes elsewhere. Without the child, without proof, their claim had withered. Power moved on when it could not win. Ashen Willow listened from the doorway, the child in her arms. Relief washed through her, slow and deep. For the first time since the road began, future felt open rather than chased. When the rider left, Stone Bear watched the trail fade. The world would always be dangerous. He knew that. But danger did not own every ending. Spring came slowly, snow giving way to green. Ashen Willow laughed more easily. The child grew strong, her eyes bright and curious. Stone Bear found himself smiling without effort. The weight he had carried for years, easing in ways he had not expected. One evening, the sun dipped low. Ashen Willow stood beside him outside the cabin. "I never thanked you," she said. He looked at her, then at the child playing in the grass. "You are here. That is thanks enough." She shook her head gently. "You gave us more than shelter. You gave us a stand." Stone Bear nodded. Sometimes standing is all that is needed. The hills glowed gold as night approached, peaceful and wide. The cabin stood firm, no longer just a place of hiding, but of beginning. Ashen Willow looked toward the horizon, then back at the life in her arms. The road had brought her to cold, fear, and pain. It had also brought her here. Stone Bear listened to the land as he always had. This time, it spoke of balance, of life continuing, not in spite of struggle, but because of it, and in the quiet of the hills. Under an open sky, a new story took root, strong enough to last.